We're sitting here with the Appalachian Road Show here at IBMA 2019, and you guys have been playing all over here. We've seen you over at Delaware Valley not long ago, and it's a true pleasure to meet you guys, especially not just because what great musicians you are, but you guys really were so entertaining when we saw you. It was just a whole lot of fun, and there was a big buzz, and I know you're playing all over here, so welcome. And could we start off, just tell us, like, how did the band start out, and how did it all begin?
Well, the band kind of started out several years ago, Jim and myself talking about the road show element of this, and after we left the band, a previous band that we were in together for almost 17 years,
What was that?
Mountain Heart. We had a group of, Jim and myself are both founding members of Mountain Heart, along with Steve Gully. That was the three founding members. When we left Mountain Heart in around the early 2015, I started itching to do this again, and so long story short, so we've told it a bunch today. Long story short, Jim and I talked about it a pretty good bit. He had a good job, I had a good job, but we wanted to do something different. Along comes Darryl Webb. Jim keeps telling him he's just produced a record on Darryl Webb, and he said, "Man, you should talk to Darryl. He would be perfect fit for this. His the part of the world he's from, the way he sings, the way he talks, the way he plays, everything just fits this. Screams Appalachian Mountains." His dad was a coal miner and a great musician in his own right. My folks were loggers and sawmillers from the North Georgia mountains, and Jim grew up in Canton, North Carolina, right around the Blue Ridge Parkway, and got to go to all the fiddlers conventions and contests and all that stuff, and saw some of the greats, Doc Watson and different ones down through the years. So he got to grow up in that culture. So all this just made sense for us. So we put it together, trying to get all the story in just a few minutes is hard, but basically we're paying homage to the music, the culture, the heritage, the lifestyle, the way things melded together. When people came over from the old world, we're trying to put all that into one kind of a narrative that we're telling the story musically and with spoken word as well.
But it is quite educational when you guys are up there speaking about it, because quite frankly, if you don't know, like as a fan, if you don't know what's going on, what it was like, you guys are explaining like what your parents did, what your grandparents did, how we got there.
Sure, yeah, lots of stories involved in it, and not big long stories. It's quick blurbs about the culture and about the music and stuff, and we hope it's educational and also energetic and entertaining. I think we've captured most of that. There might be days it's not as entertaining as others.
Was it pre-planned that way, that's how you would do it, or did it just kind of happen?
We wanted to do it that way. We wanted to make a show out of it. We wanted to make a thing out of it. And Jimmy probably describes all this the best about how we wanted to brand it and everything.
Yeah. When we were talking about, there's the authenticity element of the whole thing, like he just told you about. But we wanted it to have somewhat of an educational element, if you will, if you can add emotional elements to the songs, then they become more than they are just by themselves, and that's what they mean to us already. But it's hard for audience members sometimes to connect to that part of it. The aesthetics. I told somebody earlier today, audiences hear the music and they hear the words, but sometimes if they're not given the means to, it might be harder for them to connect to the emotion behind the whole thing and why it's so poignant and why are these guys up here singing about this particular thing. So we're trying to provide some of that and provide context and an emotional foundation, I guess, for some of the songs that we're delivering.
Yeah, it's great because when you're talking about your people came before you, the grandparents and so forth, no matter where you're playing, we all have grandparents who did other different things that were probably kind of similar.
Everybody comes from somewhere.
Yeah, that's great. So when you guys are writing the songs and stuff, what's that process like?
It's different for all of them. Some of the songs weren't written by band members, so for them, those particular things, it's like curating. You have to go find material that, which is not hard to do. There's so much great material out there, but Barry has a wealth of songs. He knows the lyrics to everything. Daryl too, for that matter. These guys know more lyrics to old awesome songs than seems humanly possible at times. But they've got, and that's part of growing up in that. and I know 18 million fiddle tunes probably, and can remember the names of 3 of them. But when we can remember the names of all the songs we know, we're deadly. But but the songwriting process itself, it can look really different depending on how it, just the day. Sometimes the muse looks different. Some days it happens really quick, and one person might sit down and it's just bam, it's done. And that doesn't happen as often as I wish it did, but when it does, it's great. Others, you might have an idea kicking around for a few days or weeks or years even, and then all of a sudden something clicks and it becomes more than it was. And then, you might fill up half a page, sit down with a bandmate and finish it out. You kind of collectively limp it across the finish lines at times, but so it can look really different.
You guys are hitting it real hard. You're touring hard, right?
Yeah, we're starting to. It's getting there. We just started first of the year. I started taking dates. October the 26th is when we started taking dates, and so it's we've done actually better than I expected probably.
And you're doing a whole lot of press.
We are.
We're hoping to.
You guys went around that whole room back there.
Yeah, we want to. We want to do that. We have been in this business a long time, and we understand the value of getting the word out.
Right.
So.
Now, you've been in the business for a while, right?
Yes,
So you guys kind of have the wisdom of...
This is all I've ever known. I started in my early 20s. I think when I took my first professional job, I was about to turn 23, and that's all I've ever done since.
17.
And Jim was 17, and Darryl was probably 14 or 15.
I bet you could speak some good words about what's going on here this week.
Oh, yeah, it's great. We're fortunate to have an organization that represents each and every artist and what they're trying to do. We have a platform, to show it, and everybody's worked their tails off to make this happen. It's Raleigh, the city of Raleigh, everything. But the people, Paul Scheminger and Amy Beth, those people at IBMA have been such a big help to us, and fans. And Olivia's awesome. She's awesome. We're so grateful and thankful for Olivia. So, like I said, we know the value of good press or press period. I mean, if you're talking bad about us, at least our name will be out there. So I've heard the old saying, I don't care what you say about me, just say about me. Even though I hadn't spoken to some of them in 4 or 5 years, because I had been out for a little while, when I started calling promoters and telling them what we were doing, and radio people, everybody was very receptive, and they were, at least they had their ear out wanting to hear what was going on, and wanting to see and hear what was going on, and that helps a whole lot. Starting from scratch is tough. I mean, these kids starting bands, I mean, you can, it don't really matter how great you are. It's hard to get the word out.
Right. But how'd you end up playing the banjo then?
I just loved it. I was singing in church, 11 years old, 12 years old. I loved to get up and lead songs. I was drawn to it. I love fish and hunt and play music. That's all I've ever wanted to do, and that's about all I've ever done.
How about you guys?
I'm worthless.
How did you guys start playing music? Like, what brought you to become a musician?
My dad played, and he was kind of my biggest influence. And, I grew up listening to people like Ralph Stanley and Reno and Smiley. And Ralph Stanley was actually from the part of the world where I grew up over in southern West Virginia, just right across the hill there in Dickinson County, Virginia. That's where Ralph Stanley was from, so...
So when you join this crazy world, that it's great when you guys are on stage, or any musicians on stage, but there's so much behind the scenes. It takes you forever to get from here to there. You're away from home all the time.
People have no idea.
How do you keep the great attitude?
Well, we fight a lot.
We just fist fight.
We fist fight. We pull over the side of the road. Get it over.
It's quick jabs. It's verbal jabs that you get in on one another from you come from the side, punch around over here like that, and then run.
Yeah. And Barry's bigger than all of us, so me and Jimmy's got to be fast runners.
Yeah. Well, so multi-talent going on here.
Yeah.
So what's coming up next here? You guys, album-wise?
We're going to the studio.
We're going into
Tuesday and Wednesday of this coming week. We're going to the studio. We've got a up-and-coming producer, Jim Van Cleve, going to be producing the record. So actually, we're all producing it together. But Jim's he heads that up for us and kind of gets all the details down and gets our engineering line and all that stuff. So we're going in Nashville. Tuesday and Wednesday
week,
of this, So we're leaving here, pretty much going straight to the studio.
When you say you all produce it, what is it exactly that, as a producer, that someone does?
Well, you start pre-production, you collect material, you get if there's any outside musicians in line, you get your schedule together. And then you start arranging, get ideas, getting your songs down from 30 to 20 to 10 or whatever, and picking the ones that fit together. And then you go in the studio, and then you've got people like Jim that can really. He can do it all, pre-pro and everything, but he's really good with other people. Like, I come across a little hard when there's something I want. I'm like, this is what I want right here, and I know we got to stop, we got to do this. So Jim's good. He's diplomatic. He's got a good way about him.
When you have a song and you're ready to, here's our song, and then he hears it, does it change?
Well, it can, but I mean, usually the rough end idea is there. Jim's good at making charts. He'll sit down and chart it. We'll get a rough arrangement, and as we go together, like we just yesterday or the day before yesterday when we got together working on some of these new songs, everybody has input. So everybody's like, we might have the song and we all agree that this is a great song. We want to make an attempt at it, and then all the input that goes in from, whether it's Todd thinking we should do something here, going into the last chorus or a key change or something. Everybody's got their own ideas, and so far you throw your ideas out there and they stick or they don't. And if you don't have too big of an ego, that works. And then getting it to tape, you want live cuts. It just seems to be better live, and so people like Jim and Darryl that's been in the studio, Todd, and all these guys that's been in the studio. Zeb is, incredible. He's not been in the studio as much as these guys have, but he's got the chops to do it all. So having those kind of people in the studio, it just seems to be an electricity that's there and a mood and a vibe that's in the studio.
As a producer, that's what you're trying to capture the most. You get great guys in a room with a great vehicle per the song, and an overall direction you're heading, a sense of how it fits into the big picture. If you can figure out how that works, and then you put great players like he's talking about in the room, let it go. Sometimes production is getting out of the way. Let the magic be what it is. Not try to stifle that. So
I think there's a big plus that that you guys have been around the block, because I can see in that aspect. Younger people who are new to the business might not be so open to have their song.
Yeah, well, and ironically, that is a funny thing, because like when I produce other acts, a lot of times what they need most is that. You can't really get out of their way because they don't know where they're headed yet. They don't know how their song fits into the big picture yet, or if it even does. So they might have 12 songs and none of them make sense together. So like as a producer, if I get brought into that situation, I'm like, well, guys, we either need to change how all of these are approached musically, or we need to start weeding some of these out and adding something different, because we got 10 songs that feel one way, or there's no diversity on this record, or there's too much diversity on this record. So having been around the block a few hundred times does help in that regard. With this band, however, everybody knows what it is we're doing. Everybody understands the vision pretty well, and what we've got to do is figure out how to make sure everything ties directly to that narrative and has emotion attached to it. So there's full expression. Dynamic expression of what we're trying to say.
All right. So how do we find you on social media so people can start watching you and going out of their way to see you?
Well, they can go to Facebook, of course, Appalachian Road Show on Facebook, and we're on Twitter. I don't know the handle. I forget it. I think it's Appalachian Road Show, actually. We're on Instagram, and there's probably 4 or 5 others, and then there's our website, theappalachianroadshow.com. But if you type in AppalachianRoadshow.com, it will still redirect.
Okay, good.
So
All right. Well, I know you guys are busy. You got lots to do. You got
We
sound
do.
check coming up.
We do. We're running straight to the stage.
Well, thank you so much for spending the time and speaking with us.
Happy to do it.